So my friend Ari Hoffman, who's on his way back from Israel, he tweeted out this poll that Donata, which does a lot of public policy polling, has been sending out to some people. And I'll just read the question where it started with. It says, sometimes over the course of a survey, people change their minds. Provided next is ballot language for an initiative that may appear on your local ballot this November. It reads, if enacted, this measure would establish a program to provide public funding to local news outlets to protect and expand local news coverage, fact-checking, and coverage to underserved areas and communities allocated by residents in a transparent and independent process. It would expedite the release of public information to residents and media and increase government transparency in news media. It would be funded by a 10-year property tax levy with $20 million, approximately 3 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, collected in 2025. Having heard this description, would you vote yes to enact this initiative or no to repeal it? And as Ari Hoffman points out, this is something that's been talked about before in Seattle. You know the democracy voucher program that they have in Seattle? So essentially it would be like a media voucher that you're paying for through a tax levy. And then that money will be disseminated to help media outlets stay alive and like fact check. So we'll get to my thoughts on this in a moment. I'm sure Nicole has some too, but I asked this of our subscribers on Patreon, Locals, and X today. Would you support a 10-year property tax levy at that rate to fund local journalism? Yes or no? I haven't looked at the poll results yet. And I really hope that you guys haven't absolutely lost your minds. Oh, 100% of people on Patreon right now say no. 100% of people who've taken this. Harold says, oh, good Lord, no. As if local journalists, present company and Jonathan Cho excluded, weren't beholden enough to local politicians. This would absolutely kill the last vestiges of independence. This is the one case where I am in favor of abortion. Please kill this idea before it breathes its first breath. Wow, that turned dark. Sometimes it's better if I read comments. Let me see if you guys had anything to say on
it's like electing the
X.
sheriff.
This is wild. Now, on X, 20% of subscribers are saying yes. Right in Edmonds, Denise Cooper says, no, I would not support a levy to support local news as there is too much biased news, one-sided politics, and untruths. Unfortunately, a lot of commenters said that they would prefer to just, if they choose to support an outlet, to give that money directly to the outlet, like you guys who support our show.
Because then they get to decide who is media, who's the legitimate media.
Right, and who's doing like, we just talked about that Seattle Times coverage that was just factually wrong. And I'll read a couple more comments on Locals before we dive into how we feel. But Bob writes on Locals, more tax dollars is not the answer to our journalism problems. I agree. Dan says government is already funding half the media. We have laws about government not creating propaganda, but they've been forgotten. They just use public safety as the excuse for propaganda. Weisscastle says, for a government that refuses to recognize Jonathan Cho as a journalist, a big fat effing no. 100% agree. This kind of stuff scares the heck out of me because as Ari Hoffman pointed out in his tweet, they're not going to fund it in a fair way.
No.
You really think that we would see a dime? And I wouldn't want it, by the way. You really think that they're going to help give that money to people challenging the prevailing narrative, like Jonathan Cho, like an Ari Hoffman, like me? You really think that when they say that money is going to be spent on improving fact-checking, who's going to be doing the fact-checking?
Right, who'd you hire for that
We're
job?
talking about media outlets that won't even just call a spade and say Inslee's lying about gas prices when his own office indicates he's lying about gas prices. So I'm sorry, no, I don't want some government-funded fact-checking. And then that other part of it where they say, because this is the one thing where I as a journalist can say, maybe that needs more money, although I don't support this at all. I want to be clear. It says expedite the release of public information to residents in the media. I mean, I'm in the middle of a public records lawsuit because the city of Seattle took months to respond to a very basic public records request. One of the excuses they're giving is, we had an open position. And so but I don't believe them. That's why we're suing them. But also, I don't trust you when you are withholding, in my opinion, public records based on whether those records are going to be good or bad for the politicians in power. You think that if we give you more money, all of a sudden everybody's PDRs are going to be responded to in a timely manner? Not a chance in hell.
Nope.
This is a terrible terrible idea. I wouldn't want a dime of that money. Again, not that it's going to go to me. But
it's
they're
scary.
going to give this to the crosscuts.
Oh, yeah.
To the progressive entities. The only government or the only media entity I am okay with getting government funds is TVW. Right. It's the only one. And that is an exception because TVW just broadcasts meetings, video of what's happening. It is a public service to have TVW streaming the votes, streaming the committee hearings. That's the only one that I truly believe provides an unbiased public service to everyone. Everyone else, hell to the no. And also, well, this is like got me just fired up today. Also, this doesn't teach them any lessons.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It is like, it's King County giving their vote for sheriff to Dow Constantine. You're giving away the power, right? Because right now, all those media outlets have to answer to is who's going to watch. So, King 5 might have gone a bit woke. They ended up seeing that reflected in their ratings. So then they've kind of been straying back to their old ways lately. And that's all we have is listening to the listener, listening to the viewer, listening to the people. But if they now have to please a government official or a government group or whatever it is, now they've got this extra element of, well, before we do that, maybe we should think about that. And that's already
an issue. Lose that money.
It's one of the reasons you left TV news is because there was already this, well, we need to think about this and we need to think about that, and not just we need to get this information out there. We need to, and in a way that the people are supporting. So no, it's a terrible idea. And King County giving giving their vote to the Dow. That's just insane. It's insanity.
And you say that it's going to be allocated by residents in a transparent and independent process.
Who gets to pick that?
There's no panel, no universe, no anything where bias doesn't exist. It doesn't, even with like the Washington Coalition for Open Government, which I support the work that they're doing. We've had them on the show fighting back against public records lawsuits, but they also didn't stand up for Jonathan Cho when he was physically blocked from attending press conferences. And so that tells me a bias there, right? Everyone has bias. Everyone has bias about the media. I wouldn't even want this to be handed out with a right-leaning bias. So this is a terrible idea. So if this is something that starts to manifest, because seems like it's just testing the waters for public policy.
That's what's scary to me, though, because they're testing the waters because they have some inkling that this could work. If they throw the word fake news out there and say this is to defeat fake news, then they can find the support for it. And that is what's scary to me, is they're just slowly seeing how far they can go and taking control.
And the biggest freaking liars here are Democrats, because they're the only ones in power. They lie left and right. You really think, I don't even know why Democrats would want this. Like, more fact checking? We can't have that. Not in this election year. But one more point I just want to make, what I was saying earlier is, if you're failing as a media entity, there's a reason you're failing. There is a reason you're failing. And maybe it is from a business perspective, you need to reevaluate how you're bringing revenue in. But propping them up does not address the underlying reason why ratings are down for a lot of TV stations, why readership is down, etc. People are going elsewhere, like unDivided, for their information. There's a reason that people are willing to pay us $5 a month. And there's a reason why we can at least make enough money for Nicole and I to do this full time. Now, if our revenue starts to decline dramatically, we would take a hard look at what we might be doing to attribute to that. Now, it could be for economic reasons, there could be a little bit of that, but if our coverage and what we're doing isn't of value to people anymore, we have to look internally about why that is, not rely on the government to prop us up while we continue to do shit work. Shoot.
Wow.
Sorry.
That came out of nowhere.
I'm sorry. I forget that that's a swear word. I really do. Anyway, so it's not teaching the media any lessons. The media has to, I firmly believe, be completely destroyed in its current form and then be built back up from nothing. That's the only way it's going to be fixed. It's too far gone. Too far gone.